What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dan Mabry Project. This episode is it's really what this podcast is about. You know, it's finding new people and having an interesting conversation. You know, having honest conversation with interesting people. You know, that's kind of my motto. And so shouts out to Travis Tucker. Travis is the frickin' man, and he set me up with this interview with Bjorn, aka BJ. BJ is a really interesting individual, and Travis had given me a little bit of insight as to who he was and what he's done in his life, particularly with archery and hunting. And I was really curious as to what he did for a profession, and he told me that he was a mechanical engineer and did a lot of work with big transmission lines and substations and that type of deal. And we kind of start off the conversation there and get into more archery and hunting and you know, some of his experiences in hunting, and he's just a really cool, humble guy, and I really like his attitude on life, and sounds like he's raised a pretty awesome family, and very conscious of the wilderness and the wild, and being conscious and hunting, and it's just we really had a really cool, honest conversation, and like I said, this is what this whole podcast is about, is meeting new people and finding new perspectives on life. And honestly, I couldn't be happier with the way things turned out. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, I made a new friend, and I got to say big thanks to Travis's family and his parents. They were very kind enough to have me in their home and lend us a room to talk in. And I couldn't be more thankful for the Tucker family and everyone involved. So had a really good time. And I know I missed last week, and that was kind of out of my control. You know, life's gotten a little wild here recently, but I'm looking to the future, and I think it's going to be brighter than ever. So I am continuing to pursue this podcast. So this is far from the end of this. And if you want to support me, I do have a Patreon page. I'll link it below. I have Venmo account is always open. And if you want to continue to try to spread the word, I have plenty of stickers that I'd love to send your way. Hit me up on Instagram at dan.mabry. And if you enjoy this podcast, share with a friend. Talk about it around the water cooler. Share it on Facebook. Do whatever you can. I really just appreciate everyone's support with it so far, and all the support that I will get in the future. So enjoy this one, and there'll be more to come. Thanks, guys. Peace. And if you would, could you tell me your name, your full name?
My name is Bjorn Sande, and I go by BJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your family hails from Norway?
Yeah, my grandfather came over from Norway when he was younger, and he came over to work for his uncle in North Dakota, and they had a place in southern Idaho. So he ended up with a place in southern Idaho, a feed nice place and a farm in southern Idaho in Twin Falls.
Wow. I guess when did you come into the picture?
So then my dad, he left Twin Falls, and he became a veterinarian at Washington State University, and I was born there in Pullman. And then we went back, and our dad went back and forth to Norway, and he even taught at Oslo, at the University of Oslo in Norway, and he's kept in real close touch, all of our cousins and whatnot.
Just he taught like veterinary
medicine, veterinary radiology.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you kind of grew up around animals, that kind of
Yeah,
deal?
I did, and veterinarians, lots
Yeah.
of them, because he taught at the vet school at WSU
Okay.
for so many years.
Is that something that you pursued, or
No.
I guess what is your?
I was the
profession?
black sheep of the family. I was a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
A lot of that where I come from at Ruston, at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
Avid hunter.
Yeah, that's my passion.
Yeah.
Hunting and fishing both. Yeah.
And I guess that's how you landed down here in North Louisiana for a couple days here with the Tucker residence.
Yeah. I met Albert a long time ago. It's been close to 20 years ago, and his sales agency picked up my line, started selling a line of product that I manufacture, and we became friends. And I think the first time he came up to hunt we call it the ranch. My ranch up in Idaho was in 2003 or 2004. He came up to go turkey hunting, and since then I think we've seen each other almost every year. And his kids have come up, all three of them, to come up to go turkey hunting and elk hunting, or both. And in those years, this is the first time I've got to come down and see their neck of the woods.
Great. Well, welcome to Louisiana.
Oh yeah, it's been 24 hours, and I've had a lot of fun already.
Great. And sounds like you have more fun planned for the weekend or whatnot.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got some things lined up for me.
I heard you guys may go gator hunting or something.
Yeah, we're going to go gator hunting Saturday and Sunday. I think we're going to go out and try to find some pigs tonight, some hogs tonight.
It shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah. We don't have those where I'm from, either one. So it's
Okay.
so that's a
I didn't know if it had gotten up that far north yet or not. I know that it's a gigantic problem down here, all the hogs and things tearing things up.
Yeah.
I guess what you said, you had a product line?
Yeah. So right now I work for a man named Travis Garsky, and he has several companies across the country, and one of them is a substation connector line. So I run that for him, and we make substation connectors for low voltages all the way through 765,000 volts for the higher voltages here in North America. Yeah.
So you're working from small municipalities all the way to like gigantic stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. All the way to the biggest utilities around, from, I guess here you would think Entergy,
right?
For instance, as a customer, Florida Power and Light, any utility you could imagine, American Electric Power, Mid-America Power, New York State Gas and Electric.
And I imagine kind of, in Idaho, Washington, all that, you have like long transmission lines,
right?
In the backcountry,
higher
voltages,
kind of longer transmission lines. So we have when they get to the substations, they got higher voltages, generally speaking. But the highest voltages are with American Electric Power in the middle of the country. So they have the 765 kV stuff, and so it's a pretty diverse line. That's what I've been doing for 30 years, pretty close at Travis, 27, 28 years with the connectors.
Yeah. And so I guess, what are you selling those? Are you making sure they're working right? Or?
I actually I design them,
okay,
and then we manufacture them there, and then I have guys like Albert, like the Tuckers out here, that his Curtis Stout group that sells them, and I have sales groups like that all over North America.
I understand, like that's more of how your brain works, being a mechanical engineer and whatnot. Is that something that you sought out in the electrical field, or was that something that kind of fell in your lap and you started to develop?
Yeah, okay, so the way that it worked is the company that I work for, Travis Garsky, Travis Pattern, is a foundry. He has a couple foundries. This is the non-ferrous foundry, aluminum bronze. And when I came to work for him, I actually worked for him, and I took care of his industrial accounts, not companies that he owned already, but industrial accounts. And one of them was a small substation connector company that was family-owned in Oregon. And the guy that started it, Walt Faulkner, He had started it in the late 60s, 1970 maybe or something. And he had been building the molds and buying the actual casting. He'd build the molds, send them to Travis Pattern. Travis Pattern would make the product and send it back to him. And he was working out of a garage. It was about a 30 by 30 foot garage. And then he passed away, and his son had taken over. And I had that account, the casting account, and his son was having I don't know, it was a lot for him to manage, and he was kind of going it was kind of driving him a little crazy, I guess.
Yeah.
And I thought I saw something there, and I told Travis, and I you should look at buying this, and I told the son that, hey, before it's worthless, you ought to think about selling it. And we came up with a deal so that the son at the time got a good amount of money, like I say, inheritance kind of thing from his dad, even though he'd been running for a few years, and he'd built it a little bit. He'd done a good job with it. So anyways, I convinced Travis to buy it, and he bought it. And that was in 1991 or 92. And we had 37 customers at that time. So now I don't know. I couldn't tell you, as it's kind of spread out and distributors have different customers and whatnot, but in different shipping locations, it's in the thousands. So
wow.
So it's a lot different.
Yeah. So I guess you found a way to streamline some of that, or the castings and all.
Yeah, I don't know if it was. The first thing was instead of being 200 miles from the foundry and having a little shop, I had everything to my disposal because Travis has such big manufacturing power.
Okay.
And then to use that basically, and then to develop a strategy to compete with the big guys that were out on the block back then.
Yeah. So you kind of like used what was already there, and was able to pump more money into it, I guess.
Right.
To some degree.
Money and kind of, and then use some sales forces and Salesforce type things a little differently, and then we were right at the beginning of the real computer age.
Okay.
And so to computerize it so that it made it a lot the service a lot better, so we can service the customer a lot faster. And I'm right at the hub where it's made, and my competition doesn't. My competition has to go buy the castings and buy things from different foundries. I'm right there and I have control of the foundry itself. So that's a bonus for me.
Yeah.
But to capitalize on it,
for sure,
we kind of streamlined the service part of it.
Yeah. I don't generally get very political on this podcast, but I would imagine that some of the tariffs and stuff recently have maybe affected you guys.
No, that's a really good point. So working in the power industry with the utilities, and a lot of them are government institutions. So for years, there's been this Buy America thing. So a lot of the utilities I work with, they already require you to manufacture and use all American goods, whether it's the metals and the bolts or the hardware, metals, any of your materials.
Right.
And so maybe it's a second tier cost to me, but it doesn't really, I don't feel it like maybe some others do, because just the fact that I've already had to so you take stainless steel hardware or aluminum hardware, bolts and nuts. So I've had to make sure that I had manufacturers in the United States make those for me so that I comply to the Buy American standards.
Yeah.
And so when the tariffs come along and people, first thing they ask, or, blankets, I have blanket quotes out there for different utilities, and they'll come back and they'll say, how's the tariffs doing? And I say, boy, you've been telling me I have to buy American, so that's kind of a redundant question, isn't it? I mean, listen, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
We've got, if somebody's telling you that the tariffs are hurting them, then they haven't been buying American like they're supposed to, right?
Right.
So, I mean, maybe second tier, so, hey, these other guys that were buying offshore, the prices are going up, so now they're coming into the U.S., and just because of economic supply and demand, maybe things, but it's not the same as the Chinese bolt going up, 25% or something like that.
Yeah.
So for me, no, it actually benefited me because I was buying American already.
Right, yeah, because you were already established in there. And
Yeah.
already had those relationships, I would imagine.
Right, yeah.
That's
and
really
and most of those people, when you buy American like that, it is it's interesting, and I was glad to see it. If some competitors or some other people that need the hardware, for instance, come in and they say, "Hey, we can't get it offshore anymore, it's too much money," or this, they'd have the chance to kind of sell out and do this. But I've been so loyal to them for these years, and most of the people that are like that, because you're buying America already.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're buying America already, then they come back and return the favor.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
And most of them have that kind of an attitude.
Yeah, that's.
And it comes with the territory.
Yeah, I guess. In your experience, how unique is your industry to that in the whole Buy America thing and the.
Well, and the reason it's like that is because it was we're dealing with the power industry,
Right.
And so first of all, it was the move to the green energy with wind power, solar power, and these other things, and let's say 10 years ago or so, when the big move started on that, it was a lot of it was government funded. So because it was government funded, it was Buy America. You can't government fund thing and then have everything shipped in offshore.
Right, right.
So people, that's where. I'm not familiar with other industries, but with our industry, that's where it developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I guess you did get to see the green movement.
Right.
Like, I guess, can you talk a little bit more about that? How that affected you or your industry?
It was our industry when the country was going through the Roaring 20s of the Bush years, let's say.
Okay.
Because it was economically, it was
Right.
great and fantastic.
Right.
In my little glass house, it wasn't. We were in a recession. Okay, because that's money doesn't get spent on the power and whatnot, right?
Okay.
So it's secondary. However many, I can't remember the statistics, but they said that more people owned their own home than ever before in 2005, 6, something. You know what I'm talking about, that time of the thing. Well, they're building homes and they're building new residential areas, and they're build all this construction's going on. And the last thing they think about is, do they have enough power to get to them? They're just building homes. Then it comes time, and all of a sudden they don't have enough. Even after the recession, they're vacant.
Yeah.
Right. There's no power. There's not enough power to feed them. And so then it comes in, and the utilities, they do have the money, and then the government comes in and helps. And at the same time, it was a double whammy, because then they came in and said, "Hey, we're going to do this green, the solar power, the wind, all of the change to that type of power." And we went. Then we were in our Roaring 20s. In the recession, we were actually in our Roaring 20s. It's one of those, we're kind of on the opposite side.
Because you were having to change grids to access.
Well, no,
those?
but they're building so much more power generation.
Okay.
And it was government funded. So, during the recession, that's when people were looking, and you had, and some of it didn't work. And I'm apolitical. I'm not going to pick any sides, because I think it's more like football. Hope people don't get upset, but our society's become a football society.
Yeah.
I like the red team, I like the blue team, and It doesn't matter what the red team does, I'm always going to be a red team fan. And I think we get that way in politics too.
Definitely.
They're fighting just because that's their side,
right?
And they're not listeing to reality.
I can definitely get along with that. I try to stay as moderate as possible myself. So.
Yeah, I'm Switzerland. So
yeah.
But the truth is, any clean energy is good energy, and nobody can argue it. Doesn't matter who you are. The one thing that we can say, but it's just human nature, I believe, we went into that green energy, solar power, for instance, too fast, maybe. We have the technology, kind of, but not all the way. Mm-hmm. And it's good, it's great, but we made a lot of mistakes jumping into it too fast, and so much money was funding it, and we were building projects. Everybody knows Solyndra and how it went upside down. Mm-hmm. And there's wind farms out there that they build these massive wind farms in Texas, for instance.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, I capitalized on it. I'm making, that was a big thing for me.
Right.
To build all these wind farms in Texas. But then they find out, when do the Texans need their power? When do you really need it? When it's like it is here in Louisiana today, 100 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's 100 degrees or 105 degrees out there, what's not happening?
The wind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So boom, here goes the coal generated,
right.
coal power generation.
Right.
Because it's got to cover it, because if the wind's not blowing, you got to have something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, otherwise you start
You're
to have
right.
those rolling
And
blackouts
so
and everything.
you're kind of, wait a second. So, but that's something that, decades from now or however many years from now, we'll fine tune that, and we'll put that wind generation where it's maybe more effective.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's because it's what everybody does. We all do. I do it. You do it. Everybody does it in a certain respect. You gotta. We all jump into things and get excited about things and maybe go forward too fast. And so I think we kind of did that on a big scale. And the same with the solar stuff in California. We did several mega solar stations in California in those years. And in those big, huge solar fields, I can remember we'd ship product down there in the semis. And they had these giant power washing systems, and they'd have to go through and just absolutely meticulously clean a semi before it could come on site to the solar site, and it'd be 1,500 acres of solar panels. So that means dirt and dust is not good on solar panels, right?
Right.
What's the only way to keep dirt and dust out of 1,500 acres? What do you need?
Grass, I guess.
And how do you get grass?
Sun.
No.
Water.
What does California not have?
Water. Yeah, I think it's.
You see, so
Yeah.
it's those things that nobody was. We kind of, it's like playing chess. You got to be 2 or 3 moves ahead.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we get excited and we're just reacting, and we're not 2 or 3 moves ahead, and we forget about those things. I think that's some of the speed bumps in the move towards our clean power.
Yeah. That's.
And then some people that just want to be antagonistic because they like the red football team instead of blue, then they start talking. Then they jump on that.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really jump on that, because it doesn't matter what you do. We're going to make mistakes going down the road,
Right.
but hopefully, if you could look at it and learn from the mistakes, maybe next time you make half as many.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always see things from, obviously there's a lot of oil field people around here and that kind of deal. And you always see people post things on Facebook about the windmill that's fallen apart or has killed, it's got a big grease leak or whatever. And
Right.
they're always like, I thought this was supposed to be clean energy. But yeah, like you said, I mean.
No, you got to you just got to continue to try. If you can move forward and make half the mistakes you did yesterday, then you're doing good.
Yeah, I definitely like that that line of thought.
Yeah.
Something that comes to my mind when we're talking about California and those types of things is wildfires.
Yeah.
Is that it affected anything that you've had to deal with?
No, I mean, it was in California, we did the wind projects, like I said, but most of those wind projects, that's all private enterprise.
Okay.
Right. To be honest, I don't do, out of all of North America, I always got on my soapbox and was proud to say, I built a company from 30-some customers in a 30 by 30 garage to one of the biggest contenders in, substation connectors in North America. And I did it with the state of California, or quote unquote years ago, the 7th biggest economy in the world, is less than a fraction of 1% of my total business. Because California is a difficult place to do business.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And that's not being political. It's just the way they're set up, the way they do things is, from a business aspect, it's, I want to send my competition there.
Okay, because it slow them down, and that.
That's
that
right. It's really is a ball and chain, and sometimes it can be even devastating, because of the atmosphere there.
Just the red tape and everything that you have to go
It's
through.
red tape. There's it can be a liability. Who they hire, the people that they have working in certain areas. It's good to make sure that you're hiring and that I don't want to say affirmative action, but that you're hiring across the board and equality and these things. But you also have to hire people that are capable of fulfilling that job.
Right.
And I don't know as that happens, and sometimes that starts to snowball.
For sure.
And I think it's proven in, I have different competitors in exactly the same business that I'm in, the connectors, and in some other manufacturing that is a little side to me, but in grounding things, whatnot. That, for instance, one of the bigger utilities there in California, Pacific Gas and Electric, I have competitors that were, started long before I was born, and Pacific Gas and Electric became their biggest customer, maybe, the majority of their sales, over 3/4 of their sales, and they went under. Yeah. PG&E didn't, but several companies have gone under because of that mindset, and it's a difficult one. So the state of California I stay clear of. Yeah. And I don't know why they have their wildfires. I mean, it's dry. They've been having fires since as long as I can remember. Yeah. There's a lot of people down there. Maybe there's not as much water because of the global warming or climate change. But also, I mean, there's also in the last how many decades, how many times has the population of California doubled? Yeah, and they all drink water and flush toilets. Yeah. So you gotta put that into the calculation too. That's a big variable that you're not realizing. No doubt. No doubt. Well, and then there's wildfires everywhere. And there is. I have an older brother, and he was recently hunting in Montana, I should say, in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Bob Marshall Wilderness, mm-hmm. And he went trout fishing. Yeah. And as they were packing out on mules, their guide actually called in a wildfire and had to shut the trail down shortly afterwards because it swept the trail and everything. And it's not something that's just no. It happens though. It happens in the north. This year, where we are, it was actually. I mean, there was less fires than there's been in years. Yeah, we had a really easy fire year. I mean, they're still there, but I don't remember even when I was just a kid. 40 years ago there was fires. Yeah. And big fires. And you're in Washington? Well, I live right on the Idaho border. Okay. Spokane's right on the Idaho border. So I'm in Washington, but most of where the Tuckers come down and visit my place in Idaho, the ranch, it's in Idaho. Yeah. And we spend most of our time in Idaho. We ski in Idaho all winter. And so we're just across the border. I've never been to Idaho. It's always something that I've gravitated that way, but mm-hmm. never been able to explore just yet. I guess can you talk about some of your adventures there? I know you're an avid hunter, and I guess what do you pursue in Idaho? Well, we hunt. We hunt and we fish. Just a couple weeks ago, I was fly fishing up on the North Fork of the Clearwater with my family. That's one of my past. That's really one of my big hobbies. I started fly fishing when I was really young. I think my dad told my brother and I that we had to use our own flies and tie our own flies when we were 7 years old. So we started, So at that point, we were that accomplished in fly fishing. Right. And so my dad was a professor, and so we had summers. A lot of time in the summers to go do these things, backpack, and he took us backpacking on long backpack trips in the summers, and we fly fished a lot. And then archery was one of my real passions too. And so I started archery hunting when I was about 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old. And when I was 14, I got my first compound bow. And again, that's you were going out into the backcountry and stalking, and you weren't sitting in a tree stand. We didn't have tree stands back then. Yeah. We didn't even know what they were back then. I just feel I have to clarify that because a lot of my audience is in Louisiana here, and they're sitting on the side of a tree waiting on a whitetail to walk by, and
obviously there's skill in that as well.
Yeah.
But
It's all skillful, and it all takes us and here it'd be a lot. It's and to be honest, I've hunted all over the South, from Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi here. Well, I haven't hunted here yet. I'm going to here shortly, but it's a whole different game. So to spot and stalk here, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how somebody would do it. I mean, this is jungle.
Yeah.
It's all, you know.
yeah, for sure.
So you can't. So the terrain makes a big difference. From where we're from, it's a lot more open, and that makes it easier. And the whitetails are still tough, probably easier to take out of a tree stand. But the mule deer and the elk, that's all spot and stalk mostly. Yeah.
Is that?
And we do actually. Just last week, I killed my first elk in my whole life out of a tree stand.
Okay.
And I hang tree stands every year for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I never sit in them. It's for the Tucker guys to come down, or some other friends, or some of my hunting buddies to hunt out of, or my kids. And doing all of that, and all of the elk that I've, processed through the ranch there, I've never done it until last week. The hunting season started on Friday. And Thursday I was at work, and I said, I'm going to go down, and before anybody gets there this weekend, and I'm just going to be by myself, I'm going to sit in one of those tree stands. And I killed an elk on Friday morning. So.
Wow. That's awesome. How big was it?
It was just a spike.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was fun.
Yeah,
with a bow.
for sure.
It was archery season, so.
Yeah. And so then you pack it out by yourself, or?
Well, I had a buddy there that was close by, and I radioed him, and he came and helped me. But yeah, no, we do all of that there. It's pretty. We take them out. It was about 2 miles to the pickup, but we go get a 4-wheeler and we pull them out to the pickup, and then I ran down to the ranch and got a trailer, and we trailer.
I guess it is your land.
Well, this is outside of my land, but it's really close to it. It's public land.
Okay.
And so outside of my land, there's really not much private land. From there to it's almost the end, and then it's public land till you get almost to Montana. So
is that wilderness, or is it just?
There's some paper. There's wilderness. There's state ground, and then there's some paper ground. Potlatch Corporation has some ground up there, but it's all basically public.
What is a paper land? I'm not familiar with that.
Pulp paper, like Potlatch Corporation. They you guys don't see it around here, but when you have these places that make the pulp and the paper, and they cut the big timber companies.
Right.
It's a big timber company.
So they're just where they're cutting and replanting.
Yeah, they cut and replant, and they own a lot of land up there.
Okay.
And so it's right in. There's some of that ground. There's some state ground, and then it goes, and then there's some federal.
Is
land.
that huntable land?
It's all huntable. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's all open.
That's interesting. I never.
So basically, it's public.
Yeah.
For all practical purposes, it's public all the way to Montana.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I guess. So have you ever gone strictly backpacking, elk hunting, that type of deal?
Oh yeah.
And had to physically pack it out, all that kind of deal.
Yeah. When I was younger, before I had the ranch, I bought the ranch.
Any wild stories like that?
Yeah, a lot.
Any that stick out? I guess any particular one?
Oh, there's not any that really stick out, but that's a chore. This is a lot easier where we are there at the ranch, because we can get them to a road and get them to equipment. But the meat processing is so much better now, because I had it cut, wrapped, the burger ground, and wrapped up and in freezers and being flash frozen by 7 o'clock that night.
Is that something that you did yourself?
Yeah,
or?
yeah,
Okay.
we do all that there at the place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As obviously, as well as anyone, if you can keep it all in house, you want to do that as much as possible.
Yeah, you get what you put. A lot of times you take to the butcher, and don't know whose meat you're getting back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't know how soon it gets butchered, or if it gets mixed with some meat that maybe wasn't taken care of, field prep properly or whatnot. And
what table it was on, or whose hands were clean, all that stuff.
You get that. And so, and we're pretty good at it. We do a lot of game meat down there, and we do it as clean as possible. That's all I've ever grown up with. We buy a chicken here or there at the store, maybe a hot dog, but otherwise I've never. We've always grew up on wild meat, deer and elk and bear and moose and whatever. Yeah,
that's something I'm very jealous of.
That's how we.
I enjoy a good white-tailed deer once in a while, but I don't really get to explore outside of that. I've had some axis in the past, which is
Oh yeah,
absolutely
Yeah.
delicious.
yeah. No, there's a lot of those different deer species that are good to eat. I ate sika deer this year for the first time in New Zealand. I hunted sika deer and fallow deer, and we ate red deer, red stag.
Yeah.
Red deer.
Hmm.
All of those in New Zealand this spring.
And all of those you're taking with a bow?
No, I took when I went over there, I didn't pack anything. One of the guys I went with had a crossbow, so I did take a nice stag with a crossbow, and the others I took with a rifle because I just didn't want to pack any. I was over there for a week of fishing and fly fishing and hunting, and then another week that my wife and I were just going to tour around. I didn't want to have the baggage of packing things around. So.
Were you able to bring any of that meat home or get it shipped home?
No, it's so that the logistics of that
Yeah.
are almost impossible.
Yeah.
So where we were staying and the workers there at the facility, they take that meat and they distribute it between the workers. So we bring it in. They were really clean about it. They bring it all in and they have a big cooler and they get it all done and butchered. And then they had a guy that came in and took the front shoulders and things and makes sausage for the ranch. And also, it's a huge ranch that we were hunting on. I can't remember. It was 15 to 20,000 acre beef and sheep ranch.
Okay.
And so they have a lot of hands and a lot of people working there, and they have a big fly fishing guide outfit and a hunting guide outfit, and these are things other than the ranch itself.
Yeah.
And so when the hunters do that, then they process this meat and they make sausage, and they supply it to their guests all year round, whether they're fishing or hunting or just doing backpacking trips or whatnot, and camping trips, and then for their staff too.
That's really cool that they don't just get rid of it or whatever.
Yeah. No.
Keep it in house as much as possible. I guess, have you gotten to go on any other international hunting trips?
Yeah, I've hunted in Canada several times, in the Yukon. I've hunted British Columbia, the Yukon. I've hunted in up by the Hudson Bay in Quebec.
Okay.
South Africa. I'm trying to think. I've hunted a few places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any,
I'm going to Serbia next spring.
Really?
I'm going to go hunt roe deer in Serbia.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
What is a roe deer, I guess?
roe deer, that's a European roe deer, and for lack of a better description, they're like we call whitetail is a pretty standard deer across the United States. In Europe, it's the roe deer.
Okay.
And they don't get really big antlers. It looks like a spike with a little kicker on it kind of thing, and they're a smaller deer.
Yeah.
But that's their deer. I've never hunted it, and so I got an opportunity to hunt roe deer in Serbia. My wife is from Bosnia, and so we go to visit my in-laws. I go every second year for sure. My wife goes every year, but we go to visit them. Her twin brother and her sister and her mom and dad all live there, and so so where I'm going to hunt in Serbia is right out of Belgrade, and so I'll fly in there. They pick me up. I'll hunt for a few days, for 3, 4, 5 days, and then I'll drive down to my wife's place. Is just 2.5 hours away.
Wow.
So it kind of fits.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I had an opportunity to buy a hunt at one of the Safari Club International banquets, and I did that.
That's awesome. Will that be a stock deal, or will that be more
I'm
of a
not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of those things that's part of the
adventure?
adventure is
Yeah.
to see how other people like this gator thing. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I've seen it on TV. How they have it on the Hunting Channel or something.
Right.
But I have no clue. So
Yeah.
it's part of the. It's part of the adventures to see other cultures and how they do it.
No doubt. And that's why I do this. Is
Yeah.
to, learn more about other things. I guess that is something that you're looking forward to is the gator hunt and the pigs and everything.
I'm really looking forward. Yeah, we're gonna do that pig thing tonight, and then the gator thing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Have you ever hunted at night?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've called coyotes kind of and done that at home, but it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't ever
Still
hunted at night.
varmint control to some degree.
Yeah, nothing. Well, I guess pigs are your varmints,
Yeah,
kind
most
of, in a
definitely.
way. Yeah, they're a pest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but in Texas they'll get in helicopters with AR-15s.
Yeah.
And just mow them down.
I was in Alabama, and it's been 15 years ago or so, and they had a pig problem then still, and I was hunting at at a ranch for whitetails, and or a private lease type thing, and they they had a big, and they were trapping them in live traps and doing things, and then they said any pigs that you see you're supposed to get rid of.
Yeah.
So they tear up the ground quite a bit, and they're just a real pest.
Yeah. They make a pretty good sausage, but that's about it from what I
the
can
ones
tell.
that when I was down there, I killed a big one, and then I killed a few smaller ones, and the big one was, I mean, if you wanted to make it's a lot of sausage.
Yeah,
and that's
pretty nasty animal.
Yeah, the little pig, the smaller ones were okay, and I took that meat home, and we cut it and barbecued it and stuff, and it was a lot better. It's still not just a pig from the farm.
Right, yeah, it's not a pork chop from the grocery store.
No, it's not not like that at all. Yeah. The white-tailed deer were a lot better.
Yeah. I guess, can you talk about like hunting bear? I just feel like that's, more of a scary animal.
Yeah, but they're not what black bears aren't. I don't consider them too scary when you live around them.
Right.
And I grew up. There's black bears around. I think I killed the first black bear I ever killed. I was probably 15 or so, and I was elk hunting, and just came about it. So it was a spot and stock thing, and I've killed them spot and stock. The last one I killed was just a couple of years ago. I was setting up tree stands for everybody, kind of checking them and doing things, and I was walking around, and I walked up on one in the archery season, and I shot one with a bow.
Yeah.
But I've run them with hounds, and I baited them. I think I've done everything with bears.
Yeah. You ever had a grizzly encounter?
I've actually hunted grizzly. I killed a really nice grizzly bear in BC several years ago, 2010, I think, 2010. Inland grizzlies. Yeah, and I've hunted them before that with other guys, and now those are scary. Yeah, those are different. They're a completely different animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 180 degrees from black bears are like bovine.
Right.
And a inland grizzly bear is like a hopped up, crazy guy on crack cocaine or something. They're just crazy.
Yeah, you yell at a black bear and it may run away. You yell at a grizzly, it may run at you.
Yeah, it makes him even want to come after you more, I think. No, they're completely different animals, and they're a little bit more nerve-wracking, a little scarier. But
yeah, I can
fun
imagine
hunt.
so.
One of the funnest hunts probably I did was a grizzly bear hunt in British Columbia.
Like hunting in Canada, is that more of like a winter thing or is that a summer thing?
It's in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be September, October. Yeah, that's when I've generally hunted.
I just didn't know if you would like pursue like hunting in the snow in the
springtime. I grizzly hunted in the spring years ago, and it was in the spring, and you're hunting the glacial slides, I guess you call it. They're glacial, they're not really but they call it slides, snow slides before they've melted. But there's a lot of lower ground that's melted,
right? And
the slide lilies will start poking through, and so you're looking for the bears up there in the slide lilies and stuff, and you're snowshoeing.
Okay.
So, but it's springtime. It'd be May.
Yeah.
Type. Plus
that's
or
cool.
minus. So.
I guess we talked briefly about you being a competitive archer at some point.
Yeah, in my earlier years when I was in high school, I started shooting competitively, and then I became a sponsored shooter, I guess, when I was about 16. And then I shot through college. I shot for archery companies, and then when I graduated from college as a mechanical engineer, I actually went to work in the sporting goods industry designing and manufacturing bows.
Wow.
That was my first job.
Yeah.
And I moved down here to Tennessee with a company called High Country Archery.
Okay.
So
while competing, were you competing with like a longbow, or was it more compound?
No,
stuff?
compound bows. Yeah,
okay.
That's
and
what we
then you were
manufactured.
designing compound bows.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
well, I started designing them a few years, after I got out of college.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know there's like single cam, double cam. I guess what do you prefer?
The single cam bow was a breakthrough in its time, but then it all has gone away. Now with the new technology, that everything, the technology gets better and better. The single cam had its place, but Matthews kind of held on to it because they'd made their name with it. But now I think it's dying out.
Right.
Yeah, it has too much string movement, knock movement.
Okay.
Vertically,
Right.
vertical knock movement.
Okay.
So if people think about it, I don't know how much you've been in archery in your life.
Not a whole lot.
Okay, but yeah, I
understand what you're talking about.
I remember shooting the single cam bows for a while there when they came out, and you just couldn't get the proper arrow flight. And people argue with you all day about it, but you just can't because the knock moves vertically. And so at the same time that had single cam bows, that was when all the fall away rests happened. Because when that knock moves vertically, you had to have an arrow rest that would compensate for all that movement, so that you wouldn't have so much interference with it.
Right.
And so you can see where those two simultaneously were.
Yeah, you got too
at
many
the
moving
same
parts
time,
there.
right? You know, because got to get that arrow rest away from that arrow so it has free movement, because that knock is moving so bad up and down.
I can see how it would be difficult to keep that consistent.
Yeah, with this, because the one cam's got a big lobe on it, whatever, the other one's round, and so you don't keep that knock coming, horizontal all the way through the.
So, competing, did you have some success there, or is it
just enough so that basically you're competing, so you got free equipment. That's what we did. We basically wanted free arrows and free bows and all the perks that came along with.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Was that something that you ended up being sponsored?
Yeah, I did. I got sponsored, and so I ended up, getting my bows and getting arrows and getting everything, so that you shot a lot. But then when I started to design bows and I was in the industry, then it really didn't. It wasn't fun anymore. You'd go to the competitions and people just wanted to hear what I was working on next, or how come their bow made a creak here, or something happened here, and so you're at work again. So then I started golfing a little bit.
Fair enough. Can you talk a little bit about like what an archery competition consists of? I'm not familiar.
The ones that I did, there's two different types back then, and we're talking, this is 30 years ago. We had the 3D competitions, and it's where there's, maybe 30 targets. It could be more or less, but let's say there's 30 targets in a day, and they'd have a shotgun start where there's a certain number of people at each target. You didn't know the yardage, unknown yardages. There was no rangefinders, and you had to touch a certain stake or something somehow with any part of your body. Somehow you had to touch a certain stake and shoot one of those three-dimensional, foam targets of deer, elk, all different types of game animals.
Yeah,
and there'd be scoring for a heart shot, for a kill shot, which would be the lung area, and then a wound shot would be outside of that any place, or a total miss. So that was one type of competition. That's the one that I participated in the most. But then in the winters, they had indoor competitions, and it's a strictly 20-yard, just shooting spots, just
at a target.
60 arrows in a round. They had a little bit different things, but the main indoor shoot was a 60-arrow round at a 5-spot target. Then they had some change-ups where they called Vegas rounds and a few different rules and whatnot, but it was all 20 yards, and it would be indoor with lower poundages. And
is it timed?
No.
No. 60 arrows.
Well, you shoot 5 arrows at a time.
Okay.
And then you shoot 5 arrows, and there's people in line shooting 5 arrows, and then they'll back off and another group come shoot 5 arrows because there's enough targets up on the
So you're competing against everybody in the field, not necessarily head to
head.
Yeah,
they had different categories. So you had men's and women's, and then it was divided into pros and age groups and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you were shooting any sponsored equipment, you had to shoot a pro division, and that's how most of those competitions were.
Yeah. I guess while designing bows, did you have any breakthroughs, any game-changing developments?
Yeah, we had a few different things that are so long ago, because the last bow that I designed was over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So we came out with a first a machined riser that we spent forever machining on a CNC. It took days to machine it, and I ended up using it as a new mold for the next, a sandcast mold. And because back then the programming in the CNC world was 2D, and there was no computer graphics that went along with it. So
Gotcha.
Everything was there was a lot of calculations to do any 3D. To do any 3D machining back in the 80s.
I can
only imagine. It was very difficult. So we spent a long time making the first one, and it was kind of fancy in 3D, but we made it as a mold. Shortly after that, people started making, the flat risers, the flat CNC aluminum risers, and then building limb pockets for them to come out with that. And then we had some different cam designs, but they were still double cams. The single cams came in after my run. We had some different arrow rests, different overdraws, because we were still shooting overdraws back then, and different sights. I don't know, that's been so long ago. Oh, we did some recurve limbs. That was one of the things I learned how to, from some of the old Boyers. So when I was in the archery business, it was at the tail end of the Tom Jennings and the Fred Bear.
Okay.
Fred Bear passed away when I was in the archery business, and Tom Jennings, he was getting a lot older, and I only got to meet him a couple times. And but then there's a couple old Boyers that were the tribal knowledge, let's call it, of how they built recurve limbs and things, and we did incorporate those recurve laminated limbs into our compound bows for indoor shooting and whatnot. So and that was really an interesting part of my.
A Boyer is a traditional bow maker.
I think that's the word for it. I called them Boyers, but that was the guys that was the old traditional bow builders. The guys that started building bows. The guys that build the initial you can't call them engineers because they were the initial bow builders.
Yeah, inventors, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. They'd sit there and build them, and they knew how to build the limbs and to grind the limbs and to make the one limb a little weaker than the other one to get your tiller proper, and how they glued all the different laminates together to build recurve limbs. The different woods, and then they started doing some synthetics inside the woods, inside the wood laminates on the outside, and those things. So I did get to go work with a couple of those guys to learn the process of building those. And now I think it's a loss. I'm sure there's some guys out there building stick bows, long bows and recurve bows that are used in those processes. But back then we were using those processes and making recurve limbs, and then we'd cut the notch out of the top of it and put axles in it, and we were making recurve limb compound bows.
Wow.
Just as a little more forgiving indoor, because when you're indoor shooting, you shoot low poundages.
Okay.
You want a smoother flight, and we'd use, they're round wheel, recurve, and they were pretty nice bows. Yeah.
I guess, can you talk about the poundage, and like how far would you drop to go indoor?
Oh, back then, the poundages were quite high. So there's a lot of us that were shooting in the 80-plus pound range. When we were shooting 3Ds or when we were hunting, and then we'd drop down to 50 pounds, 60 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess you preferred the 3D targets just because you were.
That's what I initially started. It was a hunting. It's more.
Right.
It resembles the hunting.
Yeah. Aspect.
I think the indoor was just to have a way to practice through the winter.
Yeah. It sounds like it could kind of get boring.
Yeah. Well, you kind of. It actually they had a lot of fun shoots indoor. It'd be like a bowling league.
Okay.
So you'd go in and you had leagues and you had teams, and there's a few different towns that I would do this.
Yeah.
That down where I lived, and there was a league in Moscow, Idaho, and there was a league in Troy, Idaho, and there's a league in Orofino, and so I
get some rivalries going and that kind of deal.
And there was different teams on each league, so. But it was a lot of fun. And then they'd have Valentine's Day shoot, and they'd have card shoots, and so they'd play poker and put cards up there, and you'd shoot your hand, and they had a lot of novelty type shoot things indoor.
Yeah.
And it keeps you in tune with your shooting through the winter, because it's hard to go outside and shoot a lot of times there, because where we live, there's a little not quite the right climate to be shooting outside all the time.
A little bit of snow on the ground, probably, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in the 3D shooting that you had no idea what the range was.
Yeah.
So you just using off of your experience,
right,
that kind of deal?
That was, and some of the really good guys, I got sponsored, but there were some guys that I looked up to that were they were the icons and they still are that good. Even a couple of them are, in their late 70s and whatnot, and they're still just so impressive to watch shoot. A lot of them the real good shooters were loggers. And so these loggers, I don't know exactly what the length of the log was, but it was basically 10 yards. It was 33 feet, or I think because they cut them in 8-footers or 12-footers. I think for some reason they said it was around like 32, 33 feet or some kind of thing that they did. They cut logs, but those guys could judge yardage out to 60 yards. I mean, to the yard.
Yeah.
They were as good as a rangefinder, and that was the key, is because you had to judge that yardage, and then you had to kind of judge it uphill and downhill what the horizontal yardage was, and it was amazing. So that's the trick. That's the big trick, because you can shoot indoor spots, or somebody can tell you exactly what the yardage is with the the rangefinders they have today, and if you can shoot a spot, you can hit it.
Right.
But these guys could judge that yardage in the woods, out on an open field, across water, all these different things. So that was.
I know, like, modern bows have multiple pins and that kind of deal. We use same.
It was
concept?
the same. Yeah, I mean, some of us use in certain divisions. If you went up to the open division, I think it was called, you could use a single pin and you could adjust it, and so you'd have these marks that were in 5-yard increments, and you could have it clear up to 80 yards, or for some crazy shooting or whatnot in these competitions. But you would dial it exactly to the yardage that you wanted, and then they had other divisions that you could only have 4 or 5 pins. I think it was 5 usually. It was 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 was the 5-pin.
Yeah. Talking about long shots and that kind of deal, is that something that you look to do in the wild, or you trying to?
No, I always tried it. When I was younger, we all do dumb things and stuff, and I've done longer shots than I'm supposed to, and as you grow older, that you're not proud of. And when you shoot a lot and you shoot in competition all the time, you kind of get a little cocky, and you think so you can do it. And usually you can shoot a lot better. So, but really, no. I try to instill into my kids, that keep it in that 20, 30 yard range. If you have a perfect everything set up and you know what you're doing, and you got laser rangefinder, you have 40 yards. But once you get out there, sometimes you're starting to, realistically, 99% of the archers probably shouldn't go outside that 30. Yeah. I think, if you're being conscious of
and that's just
the
from
sport.
Taking the animal in a good way.
You really should, because it's you might be able to hit that spot every time at 60, 70 yards, but the time between your release and the time that the arrow gets to the target, there's too much time there. The animals can move. Things. Right. There's too many things that can happen.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be a responsible hunter, I honestly, I get a lot of arguments about that, but don't argue. Just take it with a grain of salt, and
sure.
and agree that if you're not one of those majority, then I'm not talking to you. But the majority of the people, really, to be conscious and not have a bunch of people out there just flinging arrows at 30 yards is a good number.
Yeah, for sure. I listened to a podcast. They were talking about hunting axis deer on Lanai in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yeah.
And just talking about how, man, you could be 20 yards, and as soon as you let go, like, the deer will drop just because they're so skittish and that type of deal. And that's something I've never experienced, but I can appreciate, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And just the skill and, experience that you have to take an animal in a safe and honorable manner, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right, because that's, so they say the access deer, that brought back a memory. I was in South Africa, and I shot a diker, and a diker's a very small, tiny little deer that's probably, maybe it's 2 feet tall. They're really small.
Wow.
They call them the tiny 10.
Okay.
And we were in a water stand. I was waiting for a water buck for this whole week, this one water buck that I wanted. But anyways, this diker came in, and I had a video of it. The guy was videotaping all these hunts. And when I went to shoot him, and he put it back in slow motion, and it's quite the video to watch. So if you put the cursor right at the kill zone, the perfect heart shot, and then you let the film roll, and you hear the bow, the big whack in slow motion, and the thing crouches down because they can't just jump stiff-legged. They got to crouch down to get their springs, right?
Mhm.
And he goes to crouch down, and then the arrow took, and so the cursor is sitting right in the vitals, and he goes to crouch down, and the cursor is high in the back,
Yeah.
and the arrow hits right where the cursor is. You know, and there's such a little animal. He expired quickly, 20 yards. He ran 20 yards and expired. But that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, and that was a 30-yard shot with a really, 90% of the guys out there shooting too probably aren't shooting a bow. You know, some big guys and guys that shoot a lot, they'll shoot a higher poundage bow and a faster bow.
Mhm.
But you got to realize that there's guys. My kid is 11 years old and he's out there shooting a 40-pound bow.
Right.
And that deer could probably left by the time the arrow got there.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no doubt. So you did have a chance to take a water buffalo?
No, it was a water buck.
Water buck.
So yeah, it's a certain animal over there. They're really neat. It's just another one of the plains game animals.
Yeah.
But I had seen it earlier in the hunt, and he was a really big trophy. And so I said, okay, we can hunt in the mornings and the afternoons wherever, but every evening at a certain time for the rest of my hunt, I'm going to sit here. If I don't get him, I don't get him. And I ended up getting him the last day. But he was a really nice water buck.
So is your home filled with heads of animals?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm someone who thinks that's awesome. So
Yeah, it is probably more so than my wife. We have the place in Idaho, the ranch, and so it's got stuff there.
yeah.
And our home is just only for animals in North America. My wife won't let me
Have any
do
exotics?
Yeah, they have to go. Yeah, different continents and different places. So we have a ski place, and so that's where the Africa stuff is. And so
Nice.
we kind of try to keep it so that it's not. You don't have a kudu and an elk right next to each other. you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
A warthog and
Yeah.
a bear right next to it. They don't go together.
So you're an avid skier?
Yeah, I do love to ski. Skied all my life.
Yeah. Where do you guys ski in Idaho?
We ski at a mountain. It's called Schweitzer Mountain out of Sandpoint, Idaho. It's about an hour and a half from our house. Yeah.
What kind of terrain is there? A lot of black diamonds, a lot of blues.
Yeah, they do. They have actually they have a long-term program going on now where they're changing the mountain to try to put some more beginner lifts in so that they can keep more. A lot of the skiers, it's a destination resort, so there's a lot of people that come in that are intermediate, so they're trying to get more mountain access for intermediate skiers. But that does have a lot of really nice, expert, higher level ski runs and powder runs and things. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a fraternity in college, and I'd been grown up on the lakes around here and skied and wakeboarded, that kind of deal. And I went on a ski trip with my fraternity, and I would get to the rental place, and they're like, "All right, you gonna ski? Or you gonna snowboard?" And I was like, "Well, I've never done either, so I guess I'll snowboard." And one of my friends took me straight to the top of a blue and said, "See you at the bottom." And I fell in love with it from that point on, and I always try to make it a point to get back up to Colorado and at least spend a couple of days up there. I absolutely love the mountains and the snow. So
no, we love to ski up there. All my kids grew up skiing, and they ski 40 days a year, 40 days a year. So that's our weekends are all spent at the ski hill.
Yeah.
So.
That sounds like the dream for me.
It's really nice, and it was in two regards, because I'm a little selfish with my family time. So I got to kidnap my kids and take them away from the every weekend thing when they're growing up in middle school and high school.
For sure.
Going to the mall or doing it, but the whole family's up at the ski hill.
Yeah.
And so we ski during the day. They can run around and ski whatever they want to, or we ski together. But at the end of the day, we're sitting in this ski house, and we watch a movie together or play games or do something. But so it was. I got to be a little selfish with the family.
Yeah, and I imagine you've taught your kids hunting and conservation and all those types of things.
My girls
as well.
and both. I have two daughters, and they're both very avid hunters, and they've hunted all over. They've with bows and with firearms, and they fly fish, and they
do everything you do, huh?
Yeah, they're pretty.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
that's awesome.
I'm pretty proud of them. One of them is actually, she's going to be a sophomore in college, and she spent her summer working at a dude ranch in Wyoming. a big horse ranch.
Yeah.
And she just loves the horses and stuff. And she was in heaven. She's still there. She doesn't get back for a couple weeks. Next weekend, I think her last day is on Sunday. And then she's going to meet me in Idaho for 4 or 5 days of elk hunting, archery hunting. And then she's going to go on to school.
Sweet.
And my other daughter, she's going to be a senior in high school. And she spent the summer working in Alaska in construction.
Wow.
So she wanted to get on a fishing boat, but she was 17 and she had a hard time getting on a fishing boat. But she met a lot of captains up there, and she, I think she's got a pretty good chance. She says she's got a shoe in to get on a seining boat next year.
Yeah.
But she made a lot of money, and she worked building the house up there and doing some construction work up there.
That sounds incredible. Definitely right up my alley for sure.
Yeah. Not too many high school girls that do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, that's the woman that's kind of what grabs my attention about it, is because I wouldn't have had the balls to take off to go to Alaska and live by myself at 17 years old. So that, I guess that speaks to how you raised them. To be strong and independent and feel good about themselves and feel confident enough in themselves to be able to do that.
Hopefully they'll continue to do it. Yeah. No, they're a lot of fun. A lot of fun to hunt with. I hunted with my younger daughter last weekend. She was up there hunting, and my son.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can wrap it up there.
Okay.
I really appreciate you.
Oh no, it was great. That's my first time on one of these. Hopefully, I didn't bore everybody.
No, I mean you didn't bore me. That's for sure. I really
great.
enjoyed it, and I definitely learned some things. So.
Well, I appreciate all the hospitality in Louisiana. It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, you as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.